everybody. I'm Sophia. Welcome to the Atlanta Artist Relief Fund story time. I have 4 books today. 2 of them are shorter and geared more toward our itty bitties, and I have 2 for our older listeners as well. So let's get started. This is Barnyard Dance by Sandra Boynton. Very much a favorite at our house. I have a 1.5-year-old, and as you can see, she's really loving this one. Barnyard Dance by Sandra Boynton. Here we go. Stomp your feet and clap your hands. Everybody ready for a barnyard dance? Bow to the horse and bow to the cow. Twirl with the pig if you know how. Bounce with the bunny and strut with the duck. Spin with the chickens now. Cluck, cluck, cluck. With a baa and a moo and a cock-a-doodle-doo. Everybody promenade 2 by 2. Prance with the horses, skitter with the mice, swing with your partner once or twice. Stand with the donkey, slide with the sheep, scramble with the little chicks, cheep, cheep, cheep. With a neigh and a moo and a cock-a-doodle-doo, another little promenade 2 by 2. Trot with the turkey, leap with the frog, take another spin with the barnyard dog. Turn with the cow in the patch of clover, all take a bow and the dance is over. With an oink and a moo and a quack, 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 the dance is done, but we'll be back. The end. We love those books. They're so fun. Okay. This is a Sesame Street Sleep Tight book from the Golden Super Shape book collection. This one is by Constance Allen, and it's illustrated by David Prebena. This was from when I was a kid. Okay. Time to go home, Elmo, calls Elmo's daddy. Just one more game of monster tag, please, Daddy, says Elmo. Okay, one more game, says Elmo's daddy. On the way home from the park, Elmo and his daddy see lots of other people on their way home, too. It's almost bedtime for little monsters. On Sesame Street, everyone is getting ready for bed. Splish splash! Little Bird shakes his feathers in his warm bath. Sleepy monsters comb their fur and brush their teeth. Flossie isn't sleepy yet. Harry and Flossie do jumping jacks. 7, 8, 9, 10, pants Harry Monster. Are you getting sleepy, Flossie? Flossie shakes her head. Oh, 10 toe touches, says Harry. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oscar finishes his book, Mother Grouch Rhymes. Little boy Grouch, come blow your kazoo. Take a mud bath and eat anchovy stew. He closes his book. Sleep tight, Sleepy Grouch. Big Bird sings his teddy bear a lullaby. Rock-a-bye radar, snug in my nest. Time for us both to lie down and rest. Sleep tight, little bear, says Big Bird. At the Snuffleupagus' cave, it's bedtime for Alice. Boing, boing, boing. She bounces on the bed. Sleep tight, Alice. In the Count's castle, the Count counts sheep. 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep, 3 beautiful woolly sheep, cries the Count. Sleep tight, Count. In the country, Cowboy Grover settles down to sleep under the stars. Sleep tight, little cows, he calls. In the city, Hoots the Owl plays a saxophone serenade above the city lights. Bee-boo, a diddly-diddly-doo-wah-doo. I'll keep things cool till morning, he croons. Sleep tight, everybody. In Ernie's window box, sleepy twiddlybugs snuggle under their leaf blankets. Sleep tight, little twiddlybugs. All is quiet on Sesame Street. Monsters and birds and grouches and twiddlebugs sleep soundly in their beds. Sleep tight, little Elmo. The end. Oh, so nice. All right, this next one is called The Little Harp Seal on the Ice's Edge. It's by Karen Romano Young and illustrated by Brian Shaw. Little Harp Seal on Ice's Edge. I'm going to adjust myself. These are really beautiful pictures. Off the coast of Labrador, a hungry harp seal pup lies on the ice gazing at the cloudy March sky. His fluffy fur glimmers as white as the snow around him. His enormous eyes glow as black as the dark ocean water below. Little Harp Seal rolls onto his stomach, peers into a hole in the ice, and cries. His mother is down there somewhere. Awoo! Mother pops out of her breathing hole and sniffs Little Harp Seal's muzzle. There are hundreds of other baby seals on the ice, but from this kiss, she knows he is hers. Little Harp Seal smells his mother's milk, and he nudges her flank until he finds it. Just 3 days old, he is already an expert at nursing. Here on the pack ice, the females give birth to their pups every winter. Mother chose this spot where the ice was thin. She kept a hole open as the ice grew thicker to use as her doorway to the sea. Full of milk, Little Harp Seal lolls like a sleepy white blimp. He is almost asleep when the growling of the older seals startles him. A hungry polar bear is stalking on silent, fur-padded feet. Mother and many of the other adults slip quietly into the water. The baby's white fur blends in with the ice, but the polar bear can spot the mother's gray coats from far away. Alone, Little Harp Seal stays motionless as the bear moves closer. Plonk! An adult seal dives through a breathing hole behind the polar bear. The bear turns toward the sound, then looks back at Little Harp Seal. To him, Little Harp Seal looks just like another lump of ice. At last, the bear decides there is nothing to eat here and lumbers away. As the days pass, Little Harp Seal eats, sleeps, and grows. A thick layer of blubber forms under his skin to protect him from the cold. His puppy fur helps him by trapping warm sunshine. But spring is coming. Soon the pack ice will melt, and the seals will be without a home. One morning, as Little Harp Seal sleeps, Mother wakes early and slithers into her breathing hole. It is not long before other mothers slide into the water. Together, the mothers swim away to find mates and make their long journey to the ice pack near Greenland. Little Harp Seal wakes alone, hungry. All morning he calls for his mother, growing hungrier by the minute. The air is filled with the pitiful cries as the other pups search for their mothers. No one answers them. A few days later, Little Harp Seal's fur begins to change. His soft white coat falls out in clumps. Beneath it, sleek silvery fur appears, dotted with dark gray. Another pup slides up beside him. She follows Little Harp Seal as he squirms over to his mother's old breathing hole. Together they look over the edge, yelping, leaning toward the water, searching. Splash! The seal pups tumble into the hole. The icy water closes over Little Harp Seal's head. He opens his mouth to cry out and gets a mouthful of seawater. Coughing and gasping with surprise, Little Harp Seal bobs to the surface and breathes deeply. The pups paddle the water frantically, trying to climb out of the breathing hole. Little Harp Seal's blubber helps him float. He is strong. Webbed hind flippers beat the water. He can swim. His strong webbed hind flippers beat the water. He can swim. He dives down, his sleek new fur helping him slide through the water easily. Nearby, the other pups begin to swim too. Little Harp Seal's large eyes take in all the light that passes through the water, allowing him to see into the darkest corners. Mother Seal is nowhere to be found. A fluttering vibration reaches Little Harp Seal's whiskers as he weaves along just below the surface. He grabs with his mouth and comes up with krill, tiny creatures that drift through the water. Little Harp Seal has caught his first meal. The seal pups spend their days together, practicing their swimming and fishing and dozing on the ice. One day, while Little Harp Seal is fishing, the other pup strikes out for the north, seeking colder waters and a new home on solid ice. Little Harp Seal emerges from the breathing hole to find someone else waiting for him. Bluish-white fur, enormous teeth, and a horrible growl greet the little seal. The polar bear prepares to attack. Splash! A giant white paw seeps into the water, and Little Harp Seal plunges down in terror. He escapes the bear's sharp claws, but he can't hold his breath for long. Little Harp Seal darts up to the surface, desperate for air. He draws a deep breath, spies the bear's nose, and dives again. Little Harp Seal swims beneath the ice, searching for a way out. He spots another breathing hole and surfaces, far from the bear. Slipping up onto the ice, Little Harp Seal lies by his new breathing hole. His sleek gray coat stands out against the cold white snow. He no longer needs his baby fur to hide him. He can take care of himself. Soon he too will journey to colder waters in the north. He will follow the route that harp seals have swum for thousands of years. He will follow the ice's edge. The end. Very dramatic for a children's book. Okay, so the last one is Betsy Ross, and this is the only patriotic book that we have access to at the moment for Memorial Day coming up. But it's still really nice, and the illustrations are fun. So this is Betsy Ross, written and illustrated by Alexandra Wallner. Here we go. See, even in the cover page, they have some really pretty, nice illustrations. For John Dugdale, the spirit of my colonial soul, with love. From Alexandra. Okay. Elizabeth Griscom was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on January 1st, 1752. Elizabeth, called Betsy by her family, was the 8th child of 17 born to Samuel and Rebecca. Her family were Quakers, a religious group that believed in living in a simple and peaceful way. The family was so large that the children had to help with the chores. Betsy helped by sewing the white caps the Quaker girls wore every day. Betsy attended the Friends School with other Quakers and children from wealthy families. Besides learning reading, writing, arithmetic, geography, and history, students performed a 4-hour task each day. Betsy used this time to sew. She enjoyed creating quilts and samplers with complicated designs. Betsy's needlework was the most beautiful in Philadelphia, and she won many prizes for it. When Betsy was a teenager, she begged her parents to let her work outside their home. Her parents agreed to let her work for an upholsterer, sewing the coverings for sofas, chairs, and other furniture. In the shop, she met a worker named John Ross, and they fell in love. Betsy married him in 1773, and even though he wasn't a Quaker, the Quakers and her parents disapproved of her marrying someone outside of the Quaker tradition. At this time, America was made up of only 13 colonies on the East Coast, ruled by King George III of England. The colonials did not like being under English rule. In 1775, their newly formed government, the Continental Congress, established an American army to fight the British. The first battles were fought in Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts, on April 19, 1775, and marked the beginning of the Revolutionary War. Although Philadelphians knew about the fighting, business went on as usual. Betsy and John set up a small shop in 1775. They worked long hours to make their business succeed. John joined the army. One night in 1776, he was guarding a storehouse full of ammunition that exploded. For months, Betsy nursed him with herbs and home remedies, but despite her care, John died. Betsy was now a widow who ran her business alone in a shop on Arch Street. After work, she made musket balls to help the American cause, going against the Quakers' peaceful ways. General George Washington, the commander-in-chief of the army, wanted the colonials to have a flag. Not only would it be a symbol of the colonials' independence from England, it would also stand for the colonies fighting together. He sketched a design for a flag and showed it to his close friends Robert Morris and Colonel George Ross. Colonel Ross, John's uncle, suggested that Betsy sew the flag. The three men called on Betsy in her small shop. When General Washington showed her his sketch, Betsy looked at it and frowned. "Why not have a 5-pointed star instead of a 6-pointed one?" she said. "5-pointed stars are easier to sew, and they waste less cloth." The men looked doubtful, so she took a scrap of cloth, folded it, and with one snip of her scissors, cut a 5-pointed star. "And I think the flag would be shaped like a rectangle. It would look better waving in the wind than the square flag drawn by General Washington." The men were impressed by Betsy's design and agreed that it was better. Betsy took great care in making the first American flag. She sewed 13 stars shaped in a circle on a blue field. She placed it against 13 red and white stripes. On July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed. The 13 colonies became the 13 United States of America. On June 14th, 1777, Betsy's flag was described at a meeting of Congress, and a resolution was passed. The minutes of the meeting read, "Resolved, that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars in a blue field, representing a new constellation." During the war, Betsy became well known for her beautiful flags, but her reputation as an upholsterer grew as well. She got many important jobs. She worked for Benjamin Franklin, the Society of Free Quakers, and the State House of Pennsylvania. In 1777, Betsy married Joseph Ashburn, a sea captain. Joseph was often away from home. During one of his voyages, British soldiers occupied Philadelphia for a few months. Many citizens left the city, but Betsy stayed to run her business, even though she was alone. Soldiers camped in her house. She was polite to them, but she always let them know whose side she was on. The soldiers came to respect this lone, hard-working woman and called her the Little Rebel. During a sea battle with England, Joseph was taken prisoner. In 1782, when the war was over, Betsy learned from a friend named John Claypool that Joseph had died in an English prison. Meanwhile, Betsy and Joseph's first child, Zillah, had died, and their second child, Elizabeth, had been born. Now Betsy was a widow again. John Claypool and Betsy's friendship grew. In 1783, John became Betsy's third husband. They joined the Society of Free Quakers, which permitted marriage outside the faith. Betsy could worship in the church once again. Together, Betsy and John had 5 children: Clarissa, Susanna, Rachel, Jane, and Harriet, who died as a baby. Although John was a sea voyager, Betsy asked him to come and work in her flourishing upholstery shop. She needed his help. But John grew bored with the upholstery business and went to work for the U.S. Customs House. He became ill in the last few years of his life. John died in 1817. Betsy taught sewing to her daughters, her granddaughters, and her nieces. When they grew up, they helped her run the business. At age 75, Betsy finally retired. Her eyesight was failing, and one of her children read the Bible to her as she sat by the fire. Betsy liked to tell stories about her life. Her favorite story was the one about making the first American flag. Betsy died in 1836. The people who knew her told her story about the flag. Finally, in 1870, her grandson, William J. Canby, made Betsy's story public in an address to the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. Betsy was buried on Arch Street in the garden of the house she once ran as an upholstery shop. The flag of the United States flies 24 hours a day over her grave. There's a little author's note in here. It says, "We know many facts about Betsy Ross's life, but there are also many conflicting stories. Some historians suggest that she won contests for her needlework. Others say that she did not. Some historians do not agree that British soldiers were quartered in Betsy's home in 1777, although her grandniece, Susan Sathwaite Newport, reported that not only were they there, they also referred to her as the Little Rebel. There is no absolute proof that Betsy Ross sewed the first American flag. The story of the flag commissioned by George Washington was passed down by Betsy's relatives and friends. However, George Washington, George Ross, and Robert Morris were in Philadelphia during the time that Betsy Ross said they came to her house. In 1963, Reeves Wetherill, a descendant of one of Betsy Ross's colonial friends, Samuel Wetherill, presented a little paper star with the signature of Clarissa Claypool Wilson at a luncheon of the Philadelphia Flag Day Association. Clarissa Claypool carried on her mother's business after she died, and it is possible she gave Betsy Ross's famous star pattern to Samuel Wetherell. In my version of Betsy Ross's story, I favored the accounts of her life in the book, The Truth About Betsy Ross' Story by Robert Morris. And then there's this little picture over here. And then they have a little diorama back here to make a star with 5 points, and it shows you how to fold it. So if any parents want to do this activity with your little ones, I'm going to hold this here for a second so you can freeze it and take a picture if you are interested in doing that. So fun. Okay. Well, that's the end of story time. Thank you, everybody who was listening. Hopefully this will be available for a bit afterwards. We'll save it to the video highlights. As always, please keep coming back for story time. We have someone here almost every day at 5 o'clock p.m., or usually around 5. We keep it kind of low-key. If you're interested in volunteering, comment below or reach out to me or to Jessica De Maria. She'll be able to get you hooked up and plugged in. All right, everybody, have a good night. Stay safe, stay well in quarantine. Wishing you all the best.